Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you. Hi, Letty. How are you? Hi, Nancy and Morley. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday, Nancy. I'm so glad you had such a great birthday. Awesome. Hi, Herb and Linda. How are you guys? Good to see you. Hi, Sharon. How's dinner? Hi, Jody. Hi, Tim. How you guys doing? Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Harvey. So good to see you. Hey, Rosalind and Greg, all the way from Seattle. How's everything going? Good? Great to see you. Hi, Michael. Is Yelena around? Hi, Rena. Hi, Margot. Hi, Gail. Great to see you all.
Yes, great to have you all here with us.
Excited for tonight.
Yes, today and tonight, right now, before it gets dark outside, we are in the holiest, happiest, greatest holiday of the year. So this is actually a really, really big deal. Today is the 15th day of the month of Av. And it's a big, big secret, but today is the biggest holiday of the year. Yep, the biggest holiday, greater than Passover, greater than Rosh Hashanah, and even Yom Kippur today is that day. It is that great. And it is just an incredible day, and most people don't even know about it. The highlight of this day, and that's the reason why we chose today to do this special relationship event, and that is, there we go. We've got the rabbi, the doctor, and the therapist to talk about relationships. And some very, very exciting news. Didn't want to forget about this, and that is that next Tuesday, put this on your calendars, we're going to be having a real treat. My brother Eli Marcus, the amazing entertainer that he is, also a music historian, is going to be performing for us and teaching us the history of Jewish music. So put that on your calendars and make sure to be here with us next Tuesday. And back to today. So today is the 15th day of the month of Av, and here we have a picture of the young maidens of Jerusalem. These were the single women, the single girls, and on today and on Yom Kippur, they would get dressed in white, in linen, in clothing that they had borrowed, so no one was wearing their actual clothing, so you didn't know who was wealthy and who was poor, you couldn't tell. And they would dance, and they would then say, Bachur, young man, find yourself someone here that suits you. And so that's the day of relationships and the day of love that was traditional on this day, the 15th of the month of Av, and on Yom Kippur. Our rabbis teach us that this is not just a simple dating day, but it was actually a deep message of our relationship with God. That after Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the year, after the Tisha B'Av, it's such a sad day. It's like the end of the world. And it seems like our relationship has ended with God. And therefore, when that relationship, we pass that date and we're still in a relationship with God, it's like, wow. That is the most powerful statement you could say about a relationship, is that it has withstood the greatest challenge, the Tisha B'Av of your life. And so this day, when we say to the Bachur, to the young man, look and pick a spouse, it's actually the Jewish people turning to God and saying, God, look down and take us as your spouse, because there's nothing that will ever come between us. And so the Tisha B'Av, there were many things that happened, very sad things that happened in our Jewish history that happened on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av, and they were fixed on today, on the 15th day of Av. So the first thing in our history was that the Jewish people were passing away in the desert because they did not want to go into the land when they sent in those spies, and they would die on Tisha B'Av. It was a sad day every year in the desert. Every year on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th of Av, they would pass away. And it was just a tragic day. And then on the final year, nobody died on Tisha B'Av. And on the 15th of Av, they made a celebration, realizing that no one was going to die, and everybody that was still alive was going to make it into the promised land. There were other things that happened on this day that are not related to Tisha B'Av. They are that the Jewish women from certain tribes were not allowed to marry into other tribes. And it was on this day that they allowed them to marry into the other tribes. So it's a day of unity. But there was also a very sad thing that happened in our history, and that was they did not allow, during the first temple period, they did not allow Jewish people, the Jewish people themselves, because of the great divide between the Jewish people, they did not allow Jewish people to go and worship in the temple in Jerusalem. Could you imagine that? You think we have problems today? Oh my gosh. So here you have the temple in Jerusalem, and 10 out of the 12 tribes are not allowed to go because the Jewish people have put up blockades, not allowing anybody to go to Jerusalem and pray in the temple. That's pretty wild. Well, years later, about 200 years later, they finally took those roadblocks down on the 15th day of the month of Av. And then there was another very tragic story in our history, and that is the second temple was destroyed, but the Jewish people, we are an unbeatable spirit. And so the Jewish people, they fought against the Romans, and they pushed them back until finally Bar Kokhba actually won and created an autonomous state in Israel for a couple of years. But sadly, that rebellion was squashed, and they destroyed the entire population that was there in the city of Beitar. They killed many, many Jewish people there, and they did not allow them to be buried because they knew how important it was that Jewish people should get a Jewish burial. They did not allow them to get buried. And it was about 14 years later, and by the way, that massacre happened on Tisha B'Av. And it was 14 years later, on the 15th of Av, that finally the Jewish people were allowed in to bury their dead. And the rabbis saw this as a sign that this exile is not the final story, that we have that this is like the beginning of the Messianic era was unfolding. And therefore they decided to add an entire fourth blessing to the grace after meals that we say every time we have bread. And so the last and final thing was that the Jewish people would bring an offering of wood for the temple. And today would be the last day they would cut the wood. And they had a very interesting practice they would do, is that after they would finish cutting the wood, they would take the axes and they would break the axes. Not all of them, but a couple of axes, in a symbolic gesture that axes are used to cut down and to destroy, and therefore they don't really belong in the temple. And that we wish and pray for the time of the Messiah, when we are told that we're going to turn all of our swords into plowshares. And so this day is the exact opposite of the day of Tisha B'Av. It's a day of unity. It's a day of celebration. It's a day of real reunion between us and God. It's the marriage of us coming together with God. And so today we decided to do a special event focusing on relationships. And so we have with us, we're going to be having some very, very special guests on. My very, very close friend, yeshiva mate, and lots of other things, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. He's the Chabad head rabbi of Panama, in Panama City, and he's going to be coming on a little bit later to talk to us about what he has discovered about marriage and what he's discovered in Panama City, and share that with us. So we're looking forward to that. But we have with us right now a couple that Basi and I know for, I can't believe this, but we know each other now for almost 25 years. So I don't know what happened, but somehow 25 years have passed in a blink, and we are a little bit related.
Mm-hmm.
It's Basi's uncle and Michael are cousins, and that's how we met because
Our cousin Sadie Kreisman came to visit us. She was in California for the summer. Somehow ended up by us for a visit, and I remember we had never met you before, Michael and Barbara, but you came to pick her up, to take her out. And that was the first time we actually met you.
Yes, it was in our little townhouse.
Little did we know that we'd become so close, and had no idea at that time.
Yes, amazing.
It's been a very, very special relationship that we've had with Dr. Michael and Barbara. We've done many things together. One of my favorite things that we've done together was the couples group. You remember that? We used to run a couples group Saturday nights on relationships, and it was really fun. Rabbi and I would get together with Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara, and we'd brainstorm about different topics, and they would come at it from like a professional therapist perspective, and Rabbi and I would come at these topics from the Torah perspective, and it was a lot of fun. We spent a lot of time together and learned a lot from being with you, and really love that. So we're really excited to be here tonight with you doing this together.
Now, Michael and Barbara, they have been doing a marriage workshop for many, many years with thousands of people coming through. Barbara has been a therapist for many years, and Dr. Michael has been a doctor for many years. And between the two of them, they have helped so many people in so many different ways. And it's just so fascinating to have a couple that has so many different areas of knowledge and expertise that they can share with everyone. So this is really amazing. I'm going to post here, I'll put up on the screen here. This is their book that they wrote together called The Marriage Map, The Road to Transforming Your Marriage from Ordeal to Adventure. And it's not a very, very big book, but it has a lot of great and big ideas in it. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara Grossman. Hello and welcome.
Welcome back. Thank you so much. Such a delight to be here with you all.
Yes. If you could speak up a little louder because it's hard to hear you. There you go.
There you go. So you hear me now?
Yeah, so make sure to speak as loud as you can so we get the good audio.
You got it.
Okay, well, it's wonderful to have you. You know, we're living through a pandemic here, and it's the 15th day of the month of Av, a day of celebration of our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. And we'd love to start off with, how can we improve our relationships during this difficult and challenging time?
Yes. Well, that's a real important thing because in this time of the COVID issue, relationships either will get more intense and intimate, or they will fall apart. There's nothing in the middle because it's like so intense. So either you love being with each other or you don't. And you can't just be in the middle anymore. So it's a pleasure to be here and be thinking on these topics. And I will start off as a medical doctor, talk about science. One of our favorite studies that Dr. Barbara and I like to talk about is a study done at Harvard. Dr. Valiant, the psychiatrist, did a study that's still going on today. It's like an 80-year study now. It's been going on for 80 years. And they took 2,000 people. Some of them were Harvard students, and some of them were in the poor neighborhoods of Boston. And they measured them over all these years to check in with them. They were all men, but eventually they talked to the wives too. But in the study, they just had men in the study, and they wanted to see how men did, whether you were poor or rich. What was the factors that created longevity? And what they found was very surprising. Consistently, the most important factor that they could measure, and they measured all kinds of health factors, was the quality of their personal relationships. That determined how long they were going to live. And it's like shocking because like here today, everyone knows their blood pressure, they know their cholesterol, they know all these different numbers. But what is the most important factor after 50 is the quality of your relationship. The relationship you have with others. That determines the most likely reason you're going to have a long, healthy life. And also the quality of your relationships, it depends upon the quality of how happy you are. So happiness is not related to your finances so much, really, hardly at all. It's not related to whether you went to college or whether you didn't go to college. It was the quality of your relationships. So that's what we want to think on and focus on. Dr. Barbara.
So it seems that what stands out to me on this holiday is that our ancient tradition is very wise about the husband-wife relationship. Very realistic. It calls when God created Adam and separated Eve, he called their partnership, what's the exact words? It's a contender, an equal and a contender against him.
We can ask the rabbi how it's translated. There's many different English translations for that. Someone who's your equal, but your helper, helpmate, adversary. Rabbi, you can help with the translation because it's an interesting translation. It's not quite what it seems. It's not like a helper is inferior. You're equal, but you're there to contend with them. You're there, go ahead.
And so that's the reality of what partnership is. It's complicated. And the challenge, it seems to be.
Oh, and Barbara, you need to tell them that it says, God always says, and it was good, or it was very good. The first time that God says, it's not good, is when he says, it's not good for man to be alone. The first time. That's the God saying it. So
God's all for relationships, and he describes the man-woman relationship very accurately. It's complicated. And what I find in couples is that everything is smooth and sweet until you come up against enough differences, and you need to be able to share your point of view and understand that there can be two valid points of view in any conversation. And it's challenging cognitively to respect yourself and respect your partner and learn to work these things out. And a lot of what marriage counseling is, and a lot of what evolving over a lifetime with a partner is learning how to share and how to respect your partner and how to respect yourself. And if you can learn that, you've not only developed yourself as a finer human being, but you've developed a relationship that you love being in. And the same skills are good for any deep friendship. So it's always good to learn how to share oneself and tell deeper and deeper levels of honesty and truth, and be able to hear another person's point of view and understand that everybody's entitled to a point of view. And with respect to their experience and reality, their point of view has tremendous validity. And you go from there. And so I so appreciate our tradition for valuing marriage, because it promotes that growth and it promotes the idea that it's possible. And that's what God wants from us, is to grow and evolve ourselves so that we can respect ourselves and respect our partner and grow together over a lifetime. And so we have a beautiful tradition that is just very, very clear about the value of relationships.
Well, what I'd like to add as a medical doctor is that God set up this whole man-woman difference. He didn't have to create a man and a woman being so separate and different. He could have created, another man for Adam to be, friendly with. But he didn't create another man. He created the woman that he took from Adam and created this individual who was different. So let's look at the differences between men and women. So scientifically, for a while, the in thing was to think that men and women aren't really so different. If you would just teach little boys to play with dolls, they wouldn't get so, rough and tough, so let them all play with dolls. But it doesn't work that way, because medically we know men and women have different brain structures. And it's just the nature of the physiology because of the various hormones and the DNA where a man and woman. A man has a brain structure which allows the man to focus on one thing at a time very intensely. And the man has little compartments in his brain, and little pieces light up. A little piece lights up here, a little piece lights up there, because he's focusing. And that's the nature of a man's brain. A woman's brain is designed to have the whole thing kind of be moving all around, and there's no focus. Women are into watching everything that's happening, and they can do three things at once, and that's the nature of their brain. It remembers events in a different way than a man does. A woman has a long memory for conversations, what happened years ago in a conversation. A man won't remember that. The differences between men and women are physiologically based in your nervous system. So the complexity of man-woman relationship is that you want to have the relationship with someone and you think that, oh, this would make me happy, so you assume it's going to make your partner happy. Well, that doesn't work for men and women a lot. So you've got to know what makes them happy. You have to be able to talk with them and ask them, and vice versa, so that you each know what makes you happy, because just because you think that you're doing something that will make them happy doesn't mean that's what your partner needs. So partnerships need to be able to talk to each other and need to be able to accept the fact that, the way you see the world is not the way I see the world. And that has to be okay. Now, in Judaism, we have that structure where we accept that men and women are different, and there's many structures in Judaism where we acknowledge the differences between men and women, and we accept that they're different. So for those who don't appreciate why men have to go to a synagogue and pray and do all the ritual things, and women have a lot less ritual, the rabbi will explain why that is, but just very briefly, it's because men need it, and women are more connected to spirituality than men, because men are so focused, and men need to have that focus put in on them, or else they will just lose their contact with spirituality. So God recognizes that men and women are different, and it's important that we recognize that. And it's not like one is better than the other. As we said, God created men and women being equal, but the woman now is a helpmate against him, contending with him. That's the way it is. So
Michael, someone asked in the comments, someone asked, women have no focus.
They have many focuses. They can focus on multiple things, and women. The other part that makes men and women different is that women have a different experience of the life cycle. Since they have babies and they need to take care of their babies, and their babies' survival depend on their being focused on their babies, women tend to be more empathic, more agreeable. And they're more agreeable for a longer period of time. So men tend to focus on developing their career, and there's different pathways, but the traditional way is that men develop their careers first, while women have to get their babies born before they're in their 30s. So they have to have a lot of things handled, and they don't have really the opportunity to just be about career if they want a family. So women tend to be more agreeable and more empathic through the 30s, and then at some point they shift. It's kind of an earthquake in a relationship. They become less agreeable. They begin to attach their energy to their own wishes and desires, and so there's a lot of upsets in relationships somewhere in the 30s, because this change has occurred where a woman no longer is okay with a lot of behaviors and a lot of the structure of the marriage that was okay for many years, and this is disturbing to the couple. It's disturbing to the family, and it's real important that one of the things that we do in our classes, and we talk about a lot in a lot of venues, is to understand this shift, because no one's wrong, and it doesn't have to mean the end of a relationship. It just means that a woman needs to understand she's going through this change, and part of being agreeable is not really knowing your own feelings and desires. And so it's often the case that a woman will have collected quite a few resentments in the years that she's been accommodating and agreeable. And so to resolve those resentments and to understand what her new focus is, and for her husband to understand what her new focus is, and for them to essentially recreate the relationship, establish a new chapter of the relationship. It's a beautiful development for the relationship, but if it's misunderstood, it can often be a tragic story for a couple that's not necessary. And one of my purposes in talking publicly is to help women understand this change so they don't misinterpret it. And it's so important that that the bonds of love and loyalty are appreciated and understood and treasured, and that transition is pioneered and properly, so that the relationship can continue and have new chapters that are beautiful and rich and deep. And at that point, the couple is really on another level of partnership, and the sharing can be even deeper and more fulfilling. And I want that for couples. And the misunderstanding of this kind of growth and development, especially since feminism has been so strongly a value in our culture. I cry for the American family who doesn't understand this transition. I cry for the Jewish family that doesn't understand this transition, because it can be bridged with an enrichment that is beautiful. And I'm happy to talk about it further now or in some other occasion, because I want couples to grow through this and not misunderstand it.
That is awesome.
And I think you wanted us to pay attention to people who are listening who may not be coupled, because we can practice sharing and using the friendships in our lives for sharing and deepening our understanding of ourselves and telling the truth and understanding others. These skills are transferable with friendships and with partners. This is, love is love, and sharing one's journey in life is just so important, that we feel connected and we don't isolate ourselves in our own silos of just self-talk. It's just important to connect to others and share as deeply as possible about what life is bringing us and how we're thinking and feeling and how we understand the meaning of our lives. That's I think an important value to celebrate on a day like today.
Yes, absolutely. This actually, the way you've presented it, actually is very, very much connected to this season that we're in. The Tisha B'Avs of our relationships, the seismic earthquakes that bring about a break in the relationship or a reframing of the relationship. And what it's doing is really it's asking us to go deeper. It's asking us to find that deeper connection and to go beyond. And therefore, it really, everything we're talking about really relates to our relationship with God, which everyone has. And as you said, it also relates to our friendships with others. And so that also is really important, just to appreciate our differences and appreciate, to value each other, which is the other idea of this holiday, which is just general unity, which is the idea of just, we need those, we were created for relationships, which is basically what you said earlier, that medically it's the best medicine is to have a good relationship.
Yes, that is right. And what we write about in our book, the Marriage Map book, is we describe that throughout your life, there's always constant change. Every bunch of years, your experience of life changes. So I describe it as a spiral. And on one side of the spiral, you're feeling close to those you love. On the other side of the spiral, you're feeling more distant from those you love. So you start out in the spiral when you're nursing at the breast, you're totally close to your mother. You don't even feel separate from your mother. Then you get to be 2 years old, you want things your way, and you're feeling separate from mother. And the terrible twos, you want it your way, and you're definitely separate from mother. And then you learn as you grow that you're part of the family, and you're 4 to 9 years old, and you just love being part of the family, and you're back on that side feeling close to those things you love. And then you get to be 13, 14, and you feel more distant from those things you love, from your parents. You wanted to do it your way, because once again, you're feeling more separate from the things you love, and you want it your way. And then you get to be in your 20s, and you're married, and you start your own family, and once again, you're feeling so close to the things you love. And then you get to be 38, 45, and you are feeling like you want to do it your way, and you want more independence, and you want to have your own career, and you're kind of getting worn out from just being a part of the family, and you have your own desires and your own interests that you're feeling more distant. And then you get to be, 50, 60 years old, and once again, you're a grandparent, you're feeling close to the things you love, and you love. So that movement back and forth is a natural movement that occurs over a lifetime. And it's important for us to recognize that it's normal to have that happen. It's part of life. It's part of growth, that you need to have the independence from your parents so that you can actually make your own family. God said that in the Bible that a man and woman should cleave to each other, get married and cleave to each other, and you become one flesh, and you have to separate from your parents. You have to have your own separate life. So there's a movement in life, and it's a natural thing. And it's very hard in relationships to accept that people grow and change over the years. So it's very important to have that big picture so that you don't say, as Dr. Barbara described, that at a certain point, well, I'm going to just get divorced now because I feel like I need to be a little bit more independent than I've been. That's not what God wants, but he does want you to grow, and you do have to accept your partner is going to be changing over the years, and so will you. And that's something that is a big part of life, to appreciate that that's how movement occurs as we grow spiritually over a lifetime.
You're describing actually the Jewish year, and is described that way, as well as the physiological closeness that we have to the sun every single summer, and then we have the winter, which is the winter years is we're feeling distant. The summer is when we're feeling close, and that's in our relationship with God, which is kicked off by the Passover holiday, which is basically our closeness to God, and that transfers through the summer, and then starts the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, where now we're going to feel the distance because now we're going into winter, which is why we need to really satiate ourselves and get ourselves really ready for the winter, which is coming. And so we are told that life is a year. Your whole life is like 1 year, so you go through all the ups and downs, and even on a daily basis, the sun comes up, the sun goes down, we're constantly, and we're counted to the moon. We're counting the 15th day of the month because of the full moon that happens on this day. And we're like the moon. We're there's a relationship in the moon. It's not always the same. It's constantly changing, but it always renews itself. It's always renewing itself and getting stronger and stronger. And that's actually what this day is about, because the sun is getting weaker, and the moon therefore is shining stronger. Because we're going towards winter now, and so the strength of the sun is less. In California, you wouldn't know that because it's going to get hotter now, but and so that's beautiful, and the holidays are very much in line with that. So that's fantastic.
And then the other factor that we should think on when we look at relationships and cycles. My work as a physician, I do what we call anti-aging medicine. I keep people youthful. And a big issue that occurs to men and women is that as you get older, you lose these youthful hormones. And that is seemingly a natural kind of thing. It wasn't such a big problem 200 years ago because most people
Even 100.
were dead when that happened. You were 40, 50 years old, and that's your lifespan, and people died then. People didn't live very long. We had the 65-year-old Social Security thing begins on your 65. When they did that in 1930, that was the average lifespan. So most people were dead at 65. So it was no big deal. Now people are living to 80 on a regular basis. So we have so many years where we've lost the hormones, and that creates big problems where you don't have the energy, you don't have libido, you don't have clarity of mind, you don't have muscle stamina, you can't sleep properly. All these things happen. And I do a lot of work in that area to keep people young and youthful, and to be young and youthful allows you to have a very profound relationship that continues and is ongoing. So that's something that is happening more and more now that we're living so long. Someone like Moses lived to be 120. I don't know his physiology. I don't think it was the same physiology as the people today. You had Joseph, he lived to be, 130 something, and Abraham was 175. It's a different kind of physiology that was going on then. Whatever's happening now is what I know. I don't understand their physiology, but for us, it's a big problem in relationships when people grow older, to maintain that vitality, that enthusiasm for life is so important. And part of it is physiological, and yet there's a lot of psychological stuff, but they intertwine, and that's what Barbara and I love mixing up together and working on all these different arenas.
Wow, that's why I mentioned earlier that you guys are just so many different things together. Your talent stack is just extraordinary, that you can put all of these things together so that you bring a lot of things to the table. And especially, you're also into meditation, and you're also into, just living healthy. And you wrote a book on how to live healthy and how to live longer. And you just all these things together really are just make the two of you a really, like I said, your talent stack is very, very beautiful and helpful. And we are so grateful to have you.
And what we can say about meditation, so it's so easy to get into meditation and just to feel happy in yourself, and you feel satisfied and you feel peaceful, and there's a great value to that. And there's still a different quality of having your helpmate against you, where they pull you in a different direction. I say, I don't want you just to be meditating and just be happy. I want you to be with me and pay attention to me while you're being happy. And it presses you to grow beyond just closing your eyes and being happy, but rather to bring it into the world. So it seems that if men are left on their own, they're so single focused that, if you show them a book that's fascinating, they'll ignore everything and just focus on the book and the family and the wife and the children and all that. Well, I'm focusing on the book. I'm focusing on the meditation. And so that's the push and pull that Barbara and I have had throughout our life, is that I could be consumed with a certain focus, whether it's the business of running a medical practice or whether it's, doing your meditations or whatever. And the pull for the woman is that she wants that more integrated kind of approach that involves being interpersonal. And our tradition, our Jewish tradition, supports that very much. It forces men to, following the rules, that's your job, guys. Got to get involved in relationship. Yes, you do your prayers and all that, but you have to be involved with the woman, with the wife, with all the activity that occurs in the family. And that's so important for the man. It helps the man to grow. So over years of being related in a romantic relationship, men learn to be more in touch with the feeling side of life. And men teach women things. A man will teach women over the years of relationship to be more logical regarding the world of emotions and how to deal with emotions in a much more logical way rather than to just be passionately emotional. So we each teach each other in that way. And so a man has a certain brain structure, and it is developed further by being with a woman who pushes them, and vice versa.
So Michael's sharing a little bit about our own personal journey of how we've grown together. And when we were very young, we weren't very graceful about teaching each other what we needed. And we've had our mentors, and we've learned how to enrich each other and be partners in life together rather than just resist each other. And it's a great pleasure to be able to partner in this way where we enrich each other's lives and work together. And always in families, two heads are better than one. And it's beautiful to give our children a model of relationship that they can grow with for the rest of their lives. And we invite you to consider how you might want to grow with your partner, and we support and are happy to bring our resources to help you journey together in love.
Yeah, so first of all, anyone who doesn't know or hasn't taken advantage of, Dr. Michael does meditation twice a week, and we promote it, and we have the links for that. And they are Sunday afternoon at 12:30, and there's Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. And Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara together do marriage workshops. It's their special thing that they do. They're working on one now, on a whole bunch of them, and as they become available, we will let you know if you want to take advantage of those, because these are really valuable lessons that we've just in the short few minutes that you've shared, we've covered so much, and I want to thank you so much for that. There was something you did want to share when we had talked earlier, and that was about the idea of closeness and having time for yourself. That there's time to be together and there's a time to be apart. And that's also very much the idea of the life of, so it's not only in your own personal life, it's also in the relationship itself and how Judaism reflects that. So I want to reflect on that a little bit.
So what happens in a relationship is that there needs to be a balance between the closeness and the separation. And it's a peculiar thing that if you just cling on to your partner, like if you're doing a slow dance and you're just hugging each other, like you see people dancing who don't know the steps, but they're just, and you can dance like that for a while, but if you do it for 10 years, you feel stifled and confined and bored, and you're going to get out and look for something more interesting. That's out of their relationship. That is too clingy. And if you have a relationship that's like rock and roll dancing, you're just jumping around and you're paying not too much attention to each other, but you're so busy just moving around, having fun to your own music that you're listening to, you start growing apart from each other. So the way relationship really works long term is the way it's suggested in our Jewish tradition, is to have a structure that holds the relationship, and at the same time there's a closeness and there's also separation. So if you imagine ballroom dancers dancing together, there's a structure of you're close, but you're not clinging to each other. Each one is standing separately and apart, but you're holding on to each other in a certain way. So there's a structure, and yet there's movement for self-expression. And in our Jewish relationship, traditionally we have that structure. You have a structure where you're married and you're intimate together, but there's rules for intimacy. When can you be sexually intimate? You have certain times of the month related to the menstrual cycle where you can be intimate, and certain times where you don't even touch. And that creates structure for intimacy, and yet at the same time structure for separateness. And you need to have that balance in relationship. It's absolutely critical for ongoing relationship to create that balance in some way. And in our present culture, it's very hard because couples either end up doing slow dance or rock and roll dancing, and there's no ability to easily create that structure.
So the balance that Michael, what the beauty of our tradition, that, and it's brilliant and it's ancient, it's and we're rediscovering it, the values in common contemporary words, but we do need space for our individuality, and we need space for our connection and our partnership. And the fascinating paradox is that desire is created by distance, and the alteration of connection and distance allows the desire to continue over time, over a lifetime. And that's what supports marriages and supports families. And it's a lovely experience to learn so much about a specialty like mine, and find that my ancient tradition has known all about this for thousands of years.
Beautiful.
I'm happy to tip my hat to the wisdom you represent.
Yes, well, we label this the rabbi, the therapist, and the doctor, but you guys have taken on a lot of the role of the rabbi already. You've been. So I just love it. So maybe we're going to have the rabbi will be the therapist and the doctor, and you guys will be the rabbi.
But when something is true, it's true. It's true, and it's true everywhere. And so that there's different vocabularies for expressing the truth is not surprising.
Well, it's much better to hear it from the doctor than to hear it from the rabbi, because you hear it from the rabbi, you go, well, he's just a rabbi, what does he know? When you hear it from the doctor and the rabbi, you say, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. Someone was asking, desire is created by distance. Could you explain?
Well, think about it. When do you desire your partner? It's probably when you're seeing them do their thing, express themselves, be themselves. And it's not when they're, it's not when you're clinging to them and, you can't see them. When you see their self-definition, their beauty, the self-expression of their personality, it's exciting, and you want to close the gap. It creates excitement and desire. It's just a dynamic in nature. And so it's important that you have space to develop, and you have space to express yourself, and yet you come together and you nurture the bond. So you need to value and put attention to both parts of the dynamic. But there's nothing. I am so proud of Michael. I love when he speaks in public. I love when I see him taking care of people and helping people just change their lives. I'm so inspired by who he is and what he's committed to. And when he's, sitting next to me reading the paper, I love him. He's my guy, but I'm super enthusiastic when he's doing his thing. And it's in that space that we want to close the distance and come together. It creates an energy of that's unmistakable. And I encourage couples to understand the value of individuality and connection. They're both important to relationship.
Beautiful. And I guess the highest level of relationship is that when your husband is sitting next to you reading the newspaper, and you can also appreciate the value in that also creates the distance and therefore creates the attraction. Now you're really doing well.
That is all dependent on my capacity to perceive. So I have to do my constant personal work.
Right. We all do. Well, I know we're probably going to have more questions. I don't know if you guys can stick around till the end for that, but if you have to go, I fully understand. And we are so thankful that you guys are a part of our community, and that, thanks to Zoom, we're having this event, and so many people are watching it here on Zoom, and so many we'll see it on Facebook Live. So we're honored and thankful, and really appreciate both of you. And
yeah, it's been a teaser. We all want more,
Exactly.
so we'll definitely have to do more programs with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exactly.
You all, and it's a pleasure to support your relationships.
And with that, I want to introduce the two of you to my very good friend who also wrote a book. I'm gonna spotlight him for a moment here. And there he is. Let me get him. Hello. You can unmute yourself now. Can you unmute?
Good evening.
Before you get started, I got to show something here.
Before you share, I want to thank the doctor, Michael and Barbara. You took away half my speech.
Ah,
That's why they put you first. I know.
So I wanted to show everybody what you used to look like a couple of years ago.
Before I got married, huh?
No, actually, this is
Wow.
This is in our apartment in Brooklyn when we first got married with Mushka, and your baby will be in the next picture, Mushki. Remember that?
I don't remember. I used to have a black beard. Wow.
Now, just for those of you who are just getting to meet my very good friend over here, Rabbi Ari, for the first time. So I will never forget his wedding anniversary, even though I was not at his wedding. And you could think to yourself, how could such a good friend miss his very close friend's wedding? And the answer is because we were getting married on the same night.
wow.
In different countries.
Different countries, yes. We were getting married in New York, and you were getting married in England on the same night. So our lives have been intertwined in many ways for many, many years. And this is with your oldest, Mushki, and our Mushka. And we do want to give a very special thought and prayer for your wife, Fradel, who has just lost her brother very, very, very tragically. And on Tisha B'Av, was it Tisha B'Av?
Yes, it was.
It was on Tisha B'Av, on that saddest day. We had another sad event that happened. Fradel's younger brother or older brother?
The oldest brother.
Older brother, right.
Older.
Yeah, older. But very close in age.
Right.
And family man, and very tragically passed away. And that's us having some fun around the table there. So we want to wish our condolences to Fradel and to the whole family. And we thank you for coming on, even though it's been a difficult time for your family, to be with us. And we're direct live from Panama City.
I thought we taped this.
Yes, so good to have you on. So tell us a little bit about Panama City, Panama.
So first of all, I need to tell you guys, if you don't know yet, Rabbi Zalman and Basi Marcus, that's the top of the line we have in Chabad rabbis. I know why they reached Mission Viejo, because it's the old mission, right? The ultimate mission. So that's why you got Rabbi Zalman and Basi, my very, very dear friend, especially Zalman. I'm not going to say all his praises, because if you haven't figured it out by now, it's too late. Yes, really, very special couple and unique people. So you guys are very lucky. So just quickly, we came to Panama about 27 years ago. Panama community has about 15,000 Jews. We have been in lockdown for about 5 months. This is a third world country officially. We can only leave the home 3 times a week for about 2 hours. So I guess the democracy here isn't as good as we hope it would be. Most Jews are very traditional. Most Jewish kids go to Jewish schools. Many Jewish eateries, supermarkets. The Jews live very close together. It's mainly a Sephardic community. 80% of the members are from the Sephardic origin. but we have a very good relationship. And it's a very beautiful place. Eventually, when they open the airport, because it's closed already 4 months, and you guys want to run away from the smog and come to some tropical torrential rains, this is the place. If you like humidity, here's the place. Actually, January and February, it's very not wet. So it's, but we really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful community, very traditional. They believe in marriage and all the nice traditional customs. So we're very happy here. And that's the story.
Wow. Amazing. I really wanted to go there and visit you there, but that hasn't happened yet. You've come and visited here many times. You come here with your Rabbi Lane. Maybe looks like he's older because he's got such a white beard, but he's very, very young in spirit, and he always brings a group of young kids on when usually he has a camp and brings them here to California, so we get to meet up on the freeways at different gas stations along the way. And sometimes you get to come to the house. We get to actually spend time together. So it was wonderful to have you. And you beat me. You wrote a book before me. And I don't know when my book is ever going to be published, but in Mitzvah Shem, one of these days. And I have a picture of your book. Let me put that up. And let's see. It is right there. GPS for a Happier Marriage by Rabbi Aaron Lane. Pick it up at Amazon. We got a link to it in the email in case anybody needs it. And so tell us a little bit about your book, about what you've learned being in Panama, all about marriage. I didn't know that they taught marriage classes in Panama, but apparently so.
Well, Rabbi Marcus, Rabbi Zalman, you put me in a tight spot. I'm speaking in front of therapists. I mean, now I have to say something that's true. Usually I try to speak to people that have no clue, and whatever you say is good. But now I'm up to task.
You know, on the back of your book. On the back of your book, you have so many great approbations from very, very high-level people. I don't think you're going to be intimidated by Dr. They're very, very nice. Dr. Barbara.
You know what they say? They say money talks. You can buy any approbation you want, okay? So here's the story. Actually, I came to Panama. I was married 6 months, and people started coming to ask me advice on marriage. They were married 15 or 20 years. I had no clue. I was clueless what relationship was. I had no idea, honestly. But I realized that over here, people are coming to the rabbi before the therapist. Mm-hmm. So if I hope to have a community which is going to be stay married, I better do some work and start brushing up on my marriage skills. For the first 10 years, when I was in Panama, what I mainly did was read joke books and marriage books, okay? Joke books because when the marriages were so bad, I had to say some jokes, okay? That was the way, that's how Jews deal with bad marriages, okay? So that's where I focused my time on, and eventually I developed some ideas, and my president, who was a very, very smart man, after I gave a talk about the thoughts I had, he said, you should write a book, which at the time I thought was an easy task. It took many, many years. Today I can say, although I've invested maybe thousands of hours, literally, to do the book because I was an amateur in writing books, but last week I got my brother-in-law who went to London told me one of his friends had mentioned to him that he knows a couple of families that read the book and their marriage was saved. So obviously, if I can save a marriage, the time was well invested. Tonight, I'm going to try to share with you briefly the main points. After hearing Michael and Barbara, Dr. Michael and Barbara, I see at least they'll agree with my thoughts. I'm going to bring it out from more a psychological perspective with some religious backing. But mainly, I'm going to focus on a psychological perspective. And before I start, let me just tell you that my goal tonight is to convince you that marriage will fail. Marriage has to fail. That's my premise, okay? People that think marriage works, I think is a mistake. And if you understood that marriage fails, then you can make marriage work. And that's the goal tonight. The first, at least, part is to help you understand why marriage by nature cannot work. And it's funny when couples come to my office to be married in a month, and I say, do you think I can convince you that your marriage will fail? So the ones that say yes, I start getting worried, okay? If you're getting married in a month and you think I can convince you, you're in trouble. And the ones that say no actually challenge me. And I would say all of them at the end agree. And I have a hunch that tonight you'll agree with me too. Now, why would a rabbi want to convince a couple that's getting married in a month that their marriage will fail? That sounds like a very bad idea for a rabbi, okay? We're pro-marriages. And the answer is quite simple. Because I believe the reason marriage fails is because people think that marriage works. And they think if we get married, it's going to work. It worked for my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. And if you understand that marriage cannot work and understand why it can't work, then you can avoid the pitfalls and eventually have a successful relationship. So let's get straight into it. I do need to make another introduction before I get to my PowerPoint, which is I gave a talk maybe a year ago to 15 therapists in Panama. The resistance I had when I tried to convince people or the therapists that there's a difference between men and women was unbelievable. I was shocked. I'm not sure Dr. Michael and Barbara can help us later understand. For some reason, therapists want to say today there is no difference. Okay, so at the end of the conversation, I said, listen, whether you agree or not that it's nature or nurture, that we can discuss. Is it biology or society that makes differences? We can discuss it. But as of now, there are differences. And just this week, I saw a study, a Pew study, which basically says, yes, there are 5,000 people that were asked said there are major differences in all areas between men and women. But 50% say it's nature and 50% say it's nurture. More men think it's nature. More women think it's society. If you're Republican, they say it's biology. If you're more Democrat, they lean to society. Whatever it is, the bottom line is today, there are differences. How they came or how they're going to leave, we can talk about tomorrow. As long as there are differences, I believe if we understand the differences, then there is a chance to make marriage work. And like I said, I was on a couple of minutes, I heard the doctor speak, and I say, wow, these guys, they read my book. No, I'm just kidding. But definitely, we agree on a lot of the thoughts, and let's get right into it. Let me see if I remember how to use my share screen. And here we go. Share. No. Stop share. Try it again. Did you see that screen or not?
Yes, we did.
Okay, fine. Perfect. Let's go straight into it. So by the way, usually I talk for about an hour, but I was only given 40 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut out all the jokes. So if you guys came to hear the jokes, you're finished, okay? It's the rabbi's fault. Now, if you don't get all the jokes, you can come and buy the book. I have 80 jokes in the book. So those people that don't like the content, at least they'll enjoy the jokes, okay? Let's go. So the main reason as a rabbi, I felt it's important to talk about relationships is because of this slide you have in front of you. Yeah, it's a poor picture, but okay. Moses comes down with the mountain with the tablets. Now, why is this so important? And what does this have to do with relationships? Because if it's important for us to transmit to our children the beauty of Judaism, we can never accomplish this if we don't have a good marriage. How can we tell our kids, behave, be nice, accept our ethics if I'm mistreating my spouse? If we fight, if we insult each other, that's a very bad way to educate our kids. Number one. Number two, we know, unfortunately, we live in a world that many people have gone through a divorce, and many kids have been able to construct beautiful families. But generally, a divorce can affect someone's self-esteem, especially if it's a nasty divorce, especially when the kid has to go some days here, other days there, and parents speak bad about the other spouse, or they spoil them, it can affect their self-esteem. Kids that are being brought up with difficult self-esteems are going to have a greater challenge to accept tradition and be able to live with it. So if we really want to have successfully transmit our Judaism, we have to have the best marriages possible. If we have a good marriage, a solid marriage, we'll have a healthy family unit, and that's a great advantage for our children. So as you know, divorce statistics, I don't have to tell you, you can look at the screen, over 50%. But what's more alarming, the younger kids, the millennials, their divorce rate is higher than the older generation. I am not here to fix the divorces, but I will tell you, I will ask you, how many people that are married from the 50% have good relationships, have happy relationships, can say, wow, this is what I dreamt of? The percent is very low. I read one 17%, whatever it is. My objective tonight is to help you learn how to get to that percent. And after you understand, you go to Dr. Michael and Barbara's workshops and you'll fix it up. So let's start. We're going to start with a very simple psychological question. Today I'm going to hear, I'm sure you've all heard of or read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, who explains differences. Men do it one way, women do it another way. I feel that that book is, although that book sold 55 million copies, and I haven't reached that yet, but they're missing the essence. I'm going to help you tonight understand the essence of men and women, and then everything else will be clear. So let's start with a simple question. Not so simple, but most people know the answer. In life, what are we looking for? What would you say? Most people will agree to this answer. Happiness. People want to be happy. To be happy, I'll argue that we all need one thing, only one thing. What is it that we need for our happiness? Survey says a healthy self-esteem. If you're happy with yourself, then you'll be happy. If you don't have a good self-esteem, you can have everything in the world, but you'll be sad. For example, if you want to reach Forbes 500 and you're missing 1 or 2 slots to get the Forbes 500 and already 2 or 3 years working on it, how are you feeling? That person who's trying to get into Forbes 500 is less happy or definitely unhappy compared to a different person who lives anywhere in the world and his expectations are less. Like I say in Panama, the guy who just wants to have his daily beer and he has it, he's happier. So if you have a healthy self-esteem, you're going to be happy. Tonight, I'm going to try to help or try to convince you that men's self-esteem and women's self-esteem depends on different things. Before I go there, I need to make a disclaimer. We know that not all men and women are the same. This is a generalization. We're going to talk about masculine characteristics and feminine characteristics. We have men with feminine characteristics, and there are women with masculine characteristics. But to generalize, and the experience I have, most men will fit into this picture, and most women also. Even if you overlap in some areas, it's still okay. But before we go into the psychology, since I'm a rabbi and I shouldn't sound like a therapist, let me ask you 2 biblical questions. Number 1, King Solomon says this in Proverbs: marriage is great. One who has found a wife has found goodness. Then later, in Ecclesiastes or in Kohelet, he says something quite different. I have discovered something that is more bitter than death, the wife you have given me. So I need to understand, is marriage good or bad? You need to decide. Some of you might have heard King Solomon had 700 wives. I mean, that's pretty serious. And 300 concubines. Of course, he had all types. But if this is in Judaism, part of the Jewish teachings, there has to be a message. So how do we figure out how do we have a good marriage and to avoid the bad marriage? Second question. Who remembers where this verse is from? Very good. It says Genesis. So I guess it's in Genesis. God says, it's not good man be alone. I will make him a helper against him. I think I heard Michael say the words, helper against him. That's correct. So the simple question is, why a helper against him instead of a helper for him? The question I would like to add to that famous question, it says it's not good man be alone. I think it's great. I know a lot of guys prefer to be alone than in a bad relationship. How is it possible that Judaism says, the Bible, God says, emphatically, unequivocally, it's not good man be alone? So if I remember at the end, and if not, you can remind me, we'll try to answer these questions. But to go there, let's get straight into the topic. I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes to define or prove that men and women are different. Why? We'll get to there later. So let's go with a couple of simple questions. What percentage of preschool teachers are women? What do you think? Answer? Okay, how about university professors? What percentage are men? Okay, that sounds like a difference. Why are there more women in preschool and more men in university? Let's go. Who prefers competitive jobs? Who prefers working in a team? Listen to an answer from Harvard. University of Harvard made a study. 2-to-1 men prefer competitive jobs. Women prefer working in a team. Now that sounds interesting. I would expect the women to go to Harvard. They're the toughest in the country, the smartest and brightest. They're going to be just like the men. And still we see differences. Men preferring competition, women preferring working in a team. Who talks more about personal things with their friends? Okay, I think you know the answer. Let's continue. What would a woman do to lift her spirits? What would a man do to lift his spirits? Do we agree that this is the right answer? A woman would go shopping is a way she would lift her spirits, and a man would take a drink. Yes, pleasure. Let's go. See if you can fill in the last word. Men fall in love with their, women fall in love with their, yes, men fall in love with their eyes. Women fall in love with their hearts. That sounds like a dramatic difference, very different. Which spouse gives a higher rating to their marriage? If you ask most people, do you have a good relationship? Men or women, who would give a higher rating? What I've seen in my practice, men have no clue that there's a problem with the relationship, and their wives are all doubting it. A woman tells her friend, when my husband says he has a great marriage, I ask myself, to whom is he married? Okay, who is more into sports? I think you know the answer. Okay, so we have defined, till now, a couple of areas where men and women do things differently, have different interests. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to try to define my perspective. What is the essence of the differences? Because I believe that men's self-esteem and women's self-esteem come from different areas. Help me out. I'm going to argue that men's self-esteem comes from the 3 P's, 3 words with the letter P. Women's self-esteem comes from 3 things with the letter A. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to talk to your spouse or talk to yourself and see if you have the answer. Letter P for men, letter A for women. What gives you self-esteem every day? So here we go. Men, for their self-esteem, look for the first P, power. In the olden days, it was physical power. Today, it would be buying power. Prestige. What university did you go to? What do you do for a living? Where do you live? What car do you drive? And of course, pleasure. Men usually identify with these 3 P's, prestige, power, and pleasure. They can overlap. When a man buys his new car, his dream car, it gives him prestige, power, and pleasure. Correct. Now, if you notice, I didn't say anything about money because money doesn't start with the letter P. Of course, no, that's not the answer. But because men don't look for money. Money gets them the 3 P's. money gets them prestige, power, and pleasure. What do women look for? The women in the crowd, what are you guys looking for with the letter A? Yes, I know you're thinking it's the letter L, but I'm going to argue the A is also correct. Yes, love. For the A's, it's affection. A woman needs affection. That's part of her self-esteem. Besides affection, what else is very important for a woman's self-esteem? And she can buy it in the mall. In Panama, the malls have been closed for the last 5 months, so the women can't even buy it. But we'll all agree, I believe, that women, for their self-esteem, will look for the second A. Their appearance is part of their self-esteem. And finally, the third A, a sense of accomplishment. In the olden days, the woman getting married, her family, that was her sense of accomplishment. Today, her career, her job, her charity work, her community work, okay? Make sense? Prestige, power, and pleasure versus affection, appearance, and accomplishment. We'll see it here, all set up. If we look at this, we can understand why women are more into preschool, affection. Men are more into universities. Prestige, okay? Women like to talk to their friends about their issues. Affection. Women will go shopping, appearance, to pick up their spirits. A man will take a drink, pleasure. Everything that we spoke, all the differences that we spoke until now will fall into these two sections of the P's and the A's. Can you already understand why marriage will fail? A couple that is set up with this system, where the husband is connected to these masculine characteristics and a wife connected to her A's, could you understand why that relationship can't work? If you don't understand it yet, we'll get there in a minute. But let me ask you another question, just to prove the point a bit more. What do men like to do after dinner? What would women prefer to do after dinner? Yes, most men tell me they want to watch TV. Women say they would like to talk. Why is it that man prefers to watch TV and his wife prefers to talk? Answer? If you're connected to prestige, power, and pleasure, there's no words there. Prestige, power, and pleasure is watching TV. A woman who's connected to affection, and a woman knows affection means attention, appreciation, admiration. Attention is what my husband wants to talk with me. If my husband doesn't want to talk to me, where's the affection? Where's the relationship? So again, if we understand how people are wired, we'll understand why the husband is running to the television and his wife wants to talk. Reminds me of the story. After dinner, a wife tells her husband, hey, let's talk. The husband looks at her and says, talk? We spoke already. The wife says, we spoke. When? He says, at dinner. You don't remember? You asked me, how was my day? And I said, great, thank God. Then I asked you, how was your day? And you went on. You spoke for 10 minutes. From the morning till the night, everything you did. So you see, we spoke. The wife thinks and says, no, what I'm trying to tell you is I want to spend time with you. The husband says, oh, now that's what you want. So come watch TV with me. The wife says, no. I want to talk. The husband says, you see you're going in circles. You said you wanted to talk. I explained to you we spoke at dinner. You said you want to spend time with me. I invite you to watch TV, and then you say you want to talk. What's going on here? What's the lack of communication? Because for a woman, talking with her husband is a great emotional experience, okay? That's part of her love needs. But since he's wired up with the P's, that's not one of his needs. So therefore, he's drifting somewhere else. Imagine a conflict, a disagreement, an argument between a husband and a wife. If the husband wanted to make up, came with a nice apology and some flowers, would that work? It could work. Imagine a wife who sent a bouquet of flowers to her husband's office to make up for a fight they had the night before. What would happen? Would the husband be embarrassed? Would he be not? Would he be go? He would be surprised. Would he tell himself, "Oy vey, $25 in the garbage. Why would she send flowers?" So can anyone explain to me, how is it that a flower for a woman can change her mood and flowers for a man means nothing? How does this make sense? Once again, if you're connected to your peas, flowers don't talk to you. If you're connected to affection, somehow flowers talk to you. We all know, for marriage to work, there's a famous 3 words you need to know. What are those 3 words? Of course, I love you. Do you think that a man needs to hear he's loved as much as his wife? Most women I ask the question to say yes, of course. Most men I ask the question to say no. What's going on? It reminds you of the story. The guy who gets married the night of his wedding tells his wife, "My dear wife, you are the most special thing in the world. You're so precious. I love you with my heart and soul. And I want to tell you that until those feelings change, I don't plan on repeating the words, I love you. When I stop loving you, I'll tell you I don't love you. Till then, tonight's declaration of love needs to carry on." Does that make sense? Well, the men in this room might think it makes sense. Why not? If we're married, I love you. Why do I have to repeat it? And if you want, I'll repeat it once a year, once a month. But why is it so important for me to repeat it often? Every woman knows that if you don't hear your husband telling you that he loves you, there's an issue. Why? Why don't you trust him? He said he loved you, and he told you when he stops loving you, he'll say he stopped. And the answer again is very simple. Women are connected to affection. That's part of their self-esteem. Words of affection build their self-esteem. Men are connected to a different world. And I'm not saying men do not like to hear that they're loved. I'm just saying you do not need it as much. Well, at least until the age of 40 or 50. Then things change a bit, okay? So, to wrap it all up and give you my punchline before I look for a solution. If you agree with what you heard tonight, you can all understand why marriage cannot work. What happens when a man is looking for his prestige, power, and pleasure? Where is his wife? She's not part of his prestige, power. She's part of his pleasure. But a lot of his pleasure, like we heard before, Dr. Michael said, when the man is meditating or reading his book, he's in his pleasure. Even then, his wife feels abandoned. So she needs his affection, and he's in his world of prestige, power, and pleasure. She's not getting the affection she needs. So what happens? She doesn't tell him, I don't think you love me enough. Because he'll say, you're crazy. You're crazy. How can you say that? He'll make her feel even worse. So she starts getting upset. And how does a woman react when she doesn't feel loved? She's down. She gets depressed. She starts saying things that make him react in the wrong way. So automatically, like I said, if men and women follow their nature, that relationship will fall apart. Because as long as the husband is connected to his peas, he's moving away from his spouse. And she's feeling less affection every time, and it's a downhill spiral. Every once in a while, she complains, and he turns back, and he spends time with her, but then he gravitates to his peas, and the relationship does not work. It can't work. So what's most important to remember is this. It's not that we don't understand. It's that we can't understand. The problem with relationships is, how can I understand your need when I don't have it? You ever tried to explain to a colorblind person the color green? How do you do that if he doesn't know what green is? What do you say? It's not black. It's almost like blue. What do you do? Telling a man who's wired up with the peas to be able to understand a woman who's wired up differently is speaking Chinese. And that's why relationships in the world fail. As you know, if 50% of the people got divorced, I'm already 50% right, okay? What can we do about this? So the first thing we need to know is that this is nature. It's not natural for relationships to work unless people understand the differences and bridge those gaps. It just can't work. Now, just to go back a little bit to the Bible, I find a fascinating idea. When people get married, what does Judaism tell men they need to do? The Torah tells men they have 3 commandments. When you get married, you have to provide for your wives food, shelter, clothes and shelter, and marital relations. Fascinating. The obligation of intimacy, according to Judaism, is from the husband to his wife, not vice versa, which we can talk about a different day. Here's the $1 million question. What does a wife have to do for her husband according to Judaism, according to the Bible? Anyone know? Give me one answer. You know the answer is? Absolutely nothing. There is not one obligation for a wife towards her husband. Now, this sounds terrible. This is the chauvinistic religion they told me about, that the men dominate. That religion says that marriage is a man taking care of his wife. By the way, you know why the ketubah is in Aramaic? You can figure it out. Which man would sign such a document if he understood it? You give everything, you get nothing. I mean, this is ludicrous. It's crazy. So I hope that by now you have the answer to the question. Why doesn't Judaism tell women what they need to do? Before I answer the question, we see another biblical verse. People were drafted into the army, but if you got married the first year, you were exempt from going to the army. Judaism says, why? You have to gladden your wife for the first year. For the first year, no army. Make sure your wife is happy. It says nowhere, make sure your husband is happy. Again, this chauvinistic religion it's got it all wrong. What's the answer? And the answer is very simple. If men are connected to their peace, we need to teach them how to be good husbands. We need to teach them how to connect to their spouse. It's not their nature. A woman, we do not need to teach them how to connect to their spouse. It's their nature. If a man takes care of his wife's needs, her affection, attention, she will be there for him. That's the nature how God created it. But if a woman takes care of her husband completely, whatever he wants, that will not guarantee that he can connect to her because he doesn't understand her. If you're connected to affection, you can be there for your kids and for your spouse because you're less selfish than someone who's not connected to affection. Okay? So, according to Kabbalistic teachings, the man is like the sun, the woman is like the moon. The moon reflects the light of the sun. Your wife reflects that energy. So what do? What we know till now is why relationships cannot work. I believe, even if I don't say one more word, if you understood this idea, your relationship can change 180 degrees already. Why? Because our greatest problem is not understanding our partner and projecting our needs in our partner. And therefore, if my husband is not coming on time and not calling me, obviously he doesn't love me. Because if he loved me, he would call me. But if I understood that he's connected to a wire differently, he doesn't associate that. By not calling me, it means he doesn't love me. He's just connected to his business, and that becomes his priority without even thinking. And if your wife is upset with you when you came home late, for instance, and you get offended, and you take it personally because you missed the point, she has nothing against you. She's just saying that she's in pain. Something you did unintentionally that made her feel unloved. All you need to do is not jump into the ring and protect yourself and defend yourself, is give her the affection that she's looking for. So in simple words, if you want to fix any relationship, change it around 180 degrees, this is the secret. Women need to feel that their husband wants to spend quality time with them. Some of you might have heard of John Gottsman, a very famous therapist. He wrote 48 books. One of the points he says, one of his famous bestsellers is that if you invest 4 hours a week, you can change around any relationship. How is it possible? He says, speak 20 minutes a day, talk, 5 minutes, words of affection, and go out on a date once a week. I ask you, how can that make a difference to a bad relationship? But based on what we said, the answer is simple. Bad relationships happen because women are feeling unloved. Women are feeling that their husband is not connected to them. If you speak 20 minutes a day to your spouse and she feels connected to you, she feels you're filling up her need of affection, then she can function. And she doesn't need you to hold her hand 24/7, but she needs you. She needs to feel that she's your priority. So in simple words, some ideas. There's another 30 ideas in the book. If you pick it up, what to do for your spouse. Of course, make sure you give your wife compliments. Don't take her for granted. Make her feel she's your priority and she's more important than your friends and your business associates and your golf and your boat or whatever you do. Make sure you bring her flowers and cards. Yes, just like you did when you went and you were in courtship. How to please your husband. Yes, show appreciation. He works hard. Don't take anything for granted. Boost his ego. Tell him how smart he is, how great he is, how strong he is. And communicate with love. Yes, if you tell your husband how you feel, but you're angry and you're bitter and you're uptight, it's not going to work. Men need to understand their spouse, but they cannot unless it's communicated with love. And in simple words, here we have it. If you want to have a better relationship, change your P's and your A's. I recommend for the men in this community or in this Zoom, number 1, you got married. Now it's time to please your spouse. Stop being focused on yourself. Yes, you married the person you thought would give you something special. But for marriage to work, you need to please your spouse. Number 2, you need to remember, according to Judaism, the purpose of our life is not to be selfish. It's to be selfless, to be giving, to share. And like Dr. Michael said before, marriage helps you learn how to go beyond yourself. And from the Jewish perspective, that's why marriage exists. Because if not for marriage, we would be selfish creatures completely. Marriage helps us learn how to go beyond. And remember, peace in your home creates peace in the world. So for the men that like to change the world, if you have peace in your home, you've done a great mitzvah for society. And for the women that are listening, remember, women have a hard time with the first A. Articulate your needs. Women expect their husbands to guess what they're thinking, to understand how they're feeling. No, I won't tell him that I'm upset already 3 days, that he forgot to answer my WhatsApp message last week. Articulate your needs. Your husbands have no clue. Remember, colorblind people don't know what the color green is, okay? We have no clue. Explain it to us. Have patience. The second A, accept that there's a difference. Accepting the difference is the first step to cure the relationship. Expecting my husband to be like me and not accepting that he's different will not work. And the third A, remember to affirm his qualities. Don't just nudge him or kvetch and beat him up. Give him a affirm, make him feel special. Now, if you do all this, last week we had the destruction of the temple. This way we can rebuild the temple. We can rebuild the temple because marriage, peace in our home is so important. It brings God into the world. And just to end off with my answering the first questions we had at the beginning. Remember the questions. Why does it say it's not good for men to be alone? Some men prefer to be alone. And the answer is very simple. It's not good for their spiritual development to be alone. It might be good for their physical pleasures. But if your spiritual development needs to teach you to be less selfish, you cannot be alone. Being alone is a perfect recipe for selfishness. I will make him a helper against him. Even though you think your spouse is against you, that is helping you to teach us to go out of our egos. Stop being so egocentric. learning how to live together, share experiences, be there for your spouse, ask forgiveness are all elements of making us better people. And that's what King Solomon says. If you, the words in Hebrew is, umotse ani, I find that marriage is worse than death. If you're looking, ani, you know what ani is in Hebrew? If you're looking for me, for your ego, then marriage is a terrible idea. But matzah isha, matzah tov, if you're looking for a relationship, if you're looking to unite with your other half, with your second part of your soul, marriage is definitely the greatest experience. And I remind you, yes, to have a happy marriage, you need to invest in it. Like you tell your kids, or like we tell our kids, nothing that comes easy, you'll really appreciate. But the investment is worth it. It's better physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Every minute you invest in your relationship comes back to you tenfold. And I'll end off with my two favorite lines. First line is, they say, never tell jokes about marriage. The women don't think they're funny. The men don't think they're jokes. And the second line, they say marriage is when man and woman decide to become one. The trouble begins when they're deciding which one. Thank you very much.
Yasher koyach. Wow. From the other side of the world, I know it's late by you. What time is it by you? It's almost 11 o'clock. Wow. So that was amazing. And as you said,
let's hear if the doctor agrees. Let's hear that.
Exactly.
I see Dr. Barber agrees.
Let me unmute them. I can find them here. Oh, here we go. Mute you there.
Yeah. We're on the same page, Rabbi. You very well described the first marriage. It's inevitable and it is a failure. And it's on the platform of failure that we recreate consciously a marriage that works.
Perfect.
I really enjoyed your presentation, and the scientific research. When I was in college, 1968, 69, everybody was trying to make men and women to be the same, and then you had like 10, 15 years of research which seemed to say, well, they're not really so different. But now that we have PET scans and all these new scans, we can tell that men and women's brains are different. We can measure that when a man is doing work, he's a little part of his brain is focused, and the left and right side don't communicate very much. There's very little connection between the right and left sides of a man's brain, whereas a woman, their whole brain is involved with whatever they're doing, and there's so much connection between the right and left side. So we know the physiology of the brain of a man and woman are different. You can't argue that. Now, how it shows up, then you can argue that. But I totally agree with you, Rabbi, in terms of we see the differences between men and women, and they clearly exist. And it's not so much a social kind of thing, a societal kind of thing. It's a physiological effect. Even in the countries like in Scandinavia, where they have, men and women are, quote, equal, equal jobs, equal pay, everything equal, there's still big differences in men and women. So I totally agree with you. And my favorite quote that you will be aware of is the Rebbe's quote, where he talks about a king without a queen, the Zohar says, is neither great nor a king, for it's the woman who empowers the man to conquer his space. And it's the man who empowers the woman to penetrate and nurture hers. Then the man will learn from this woman that he too can reach within others and provide nurture. And the woman will learn that she too can conquer. And so the Rebbe is talking about how we develop spiritually, that this is the goal of marriage. And it's not an easy task, as you described, and it's not designed to be smooth. And that's why we wrote the name of our book. The marriage map is the road to transforming your marriage from ordeal to adventure, because it is an ordeal and it takes a long time. It's taken a long time for Barbara to train me to be empathetic. and to be willing to talk about feelings. I wasn't really good about that, but I'm getting pretty good about it. I'm not as good as Barbara because she has a different brain than I do. But I've taught Barbara how to be logical about upsets, how to deal with them by thinking through the process. And she does that fantastically. And that's what we do for each other. And then you have a different relationship with God. When you transform your relationship with your marriage partner, you are transforming your relationship with God. And I am so
100%.
I'm so thankful to my wife for opening me up, because my love for God is a whole different, it's very personal. Before that, it was impersonal. I love God kind of like the Force in Luke Skywalker's Star Wars. It's just an impersonal force. But through being with my wife, God is very personal to me, very personal. And that's what I thank her for.
Great, great, excellent. I'm going to have to send you Rabbi Marcus, send him a copy of my book, please.
Oh, that would be a delight. And we'll send you a copy of our book, indeed.
My pleasure.
Yes. There we are. So we should see if there's some questions from the audience, from the people listening. They have some thoughtful questions.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go off of Facebook now, so we could this way it could be more private, so it's not on Facebook.
Sure.
So for all you who are watching on Facebook, you got to get on Zoom to get the Q&A. Thank you all for watching. So we're going to go off of Facebook, and now we can open it up for anyone who would like to unmute themselves and has a question for on the subject. And we have now Rabbi Lane, thank you so much, and for Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara, thank you both so much.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to pose another possibility or a story that I'm not sure was, well, at least to maybe you could provide some clarification. So the story that has great import to me is the experience of the Israelites and the fact that they carried a lot of baggage with them, and God's intent was to not let it be carried into Israel. And so to me, that is a huge thing. People bring baggage into their relationships. And so what aspect of that can we, how do you address that?
Leave it for Michael. Who's the question for?
Well, I think, I'd like to hear, yeah, I'd like to hear everybody, if at all possible.
It looks like we agree on everything, so they can talk.
We all have histories, and we bring them into our relationships. And, and part of if some of those experiences are difficult and complicated, it probably affects our behavior or it affects our expectations of our relationship. The challenge of being with a partner, you come to reflect and deal with what you bring in the way of baggage in the relationship, and the pressure of wanting love in present time with your partner forces you to take apart your history and understand it, resolve it, forgive who you have to forgive, understand what you've come to need from a partner as a result of the experience, and heal yourself. And it's a beautiful psychological process of maturing and understanding yourself and accepting life on life's terms, accepting parents, accepting siblings, and claiming your ability to resolve and go forward in your life. It's a life process that is important and inevitable.
How I would look at this is, it's important in your marriage to have the opportunity of sharing with your partner why you're so sensitive about X, Y, and Z. So in our life, for Barbara and I'm sensitive to criticism because my mother was real intense and she would criticize a lot. And if Barbara looks at me like I'm not doing something 100% the way she thinks should be done, I fall apart emotionally. What? I've been trying to do everything I can to please you. And what do you mean you're not totally pleased? And that's where I come from. And I have to explain to her, it's not that she is criticizing me that I'm so upset. It's that I'm remembering what it was like to be 6 years old. And my mother said, why didn't you clean the house when I came home from work? And look, you left a dish in the sink. And oh my God, how can you do this? And so I carry that around and I need for Barbara to heal me of that. And so I ask her how to heal me of that. I ask her to be really gentle when she wants to correct my behaviors because I look tough, but I'm not. And Barbara has her things that she's sensitive about. When she was young, her mother divorced and she felt abandoned and for a variety of reasons. And so she's, when I'm flying on an airplane or I'm coming home late from work, if I don't call her on the phone, she panics and she's upset. She thinks I'm dead. She thinks that something is wrong. And then when I finally come home, she's like gone crazy. And so she has to explain and talk to me, explain that the reason why she's so sensitive is because when she was 2, this happened, when she was 8, this happened, and so on and so on. And so she just needs for me to do this behavior of calling on the phone. And so that's what we do for each other. Marriage is designed to make you heal each other if you're talking and you tell them what you want from each other. So as the rabbi explained, you can't just do what you think they want you to do, what your partner wants. You have to ask them. And that's what we do in marriage. That's the healing process. And it's not designed to be easy and not designed to be easy.
I would just like to add to that. You guys fit into my P's and A's, okay? If anyone has a question for me, I'll be happy to field it because I'm going to have to go.
So I'd like to say something before you go, Rabbi Lane, Ari. I could just imagine, if I could get into some of the people's heads who would listen to your talk and they'd go, I could see the women going, I hope my husband was listening. And I could hear the men going, I hope my wife was listening. And that would be the exact opposite of what you wanted to accomplish. But I am so happy to see in the comments here that people are really seeing what you said and they're appreciating it. And the same thing with Barbara and Michael, that people aren't reading it that way, but it could easily be, you could easily take it that way.
Rabbi Zalman, and I hope they both heard what I said, so they'll go buy the book, okay?
Exactly.
I'd like to say something.
For Rabbi Lane, for him it's almost midnight, so if you have a question for Rabbi Lane, I know that Harvey and Stephanie, you guys unmuted yourself. Do you have a question for Rabbi Lane?
I would just like to say thank you to both Barbara and Michael and Rabbi, because Harvey and I are going to be married 34 years, and we brought in a lot of baggage to a second marriage. And listening to presentations like this is so wonderful because we learn something that we can bring into our marriage to make it even better. So I wanted to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And we've celebrated, by the way, their names are Chaim Shalom and Simcha. These are their names. And we celebrated their anniversary in Israel a couple of years ago. We celebrated at the JLI retreat a couple of years ago. And now we're celebrating it in quarantine. So we're so glad that you guys are together. And we actually did a wedding here in Chabad. We did the proper chuppah and everything. So this is beautiful. Today's and your anniversary is around the Tu B'Av, which is the 15th of Av. So this is great. Anybody else have any questions for Rabbi Lane or want to give any comments? I see who else. Is anybody unmuting themselves? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like to say something, have a question. Joshua?
Just want to know if there's a way I can get a signed copy of his book as well.
If you pay for a DHL to come here and they go back, yeah. Next time I'm in Los Angeles.
So maybe you could, if you sign one and just send it here to send it here.
Okay. We'll talk. Send me an email.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much. Wonderful zing, my dear friend, Rabbi Marcus. Thank you very much. Doctors Michael and Barbara, it was wonderful hearing you guys. And for all the rest of you that had the patience to listen to my corny jokes, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, we still have Dr. Michael and Barbara on, so if anybody has any questions or comments they would like to address to Dr. Michael and Barbara, please go ahead and unmute yourself. We're going to stay on for just a few more minutes, and then we will end our beautiful program tonight. So if you have a question or a comment or anything like that, just unmute yourself, and I will put the spotlight on you, and you can share or ask.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Grossman, I know I sent you a chat through the email, but just to kind of put you on the spot, I guess, is there, do you think, a correlation between the longevity of, the average human being in modern times versus the, the emotional, relational capabilities of individuals as they were historically?
Well, I think that most of the longevity that's happened in the last 150 years has come through mechanical scientific advances, clean water, antibiotics, learning about different things like that. Why there were so many people living 100 and 175 years, and I don't think we understand scientifically what was happening. But clearly, when you look at longevity around the world, people who have stable cultures where you have community and you have regular interactions and the stress level is down and the connections between the people are very strong. They're the people who live the longest. They have some in Japan, some in certain areas of Russia, some in other locations. I forget the other locations, but they all have traditional cultures where there's a big, strong feeling of community, and you don't have a lot of stress in that culture. And then you have people who live to be 100 regularly.
So you believe more so social stability rather than individual longevity builds to better interpersonal relationships?
No. The interpersonal relationships, come from a culture, and a culture is complex. When you have a culture that works, you can't separate out the culture from the interpersonal relationship, which came first. That it all goes together. When you have a strong community and people are really emotionally attached to each other and appreciating each other, I don't think you can separate out which came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, that's all, it just happens. It's part of the community structure.
You did refer to the George Valiant study, though.
Right. So we know in our culture, clearly people living longer when you have connected interpersonal relationships that are high quality, that bring you love and caring. That is the most essential reason why people are living longer in today's world, but I think all over. And how much that happens because of community, how much that happens because you personally look to have that, that's hard to say. I mean, it really depends upon so many factors, but you need to have the intense interpersonal relationships, however you create it.
No, very beautiful, elucidating. Thank you. I'm curious. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Muted. Anybody else? Looks like we got everybody in. So in that case, we'd like to thank you very, very much. Thank you both so much. Remind everybody that Dr. Michael will be on tomorrow night at 7:30. Meditation. We also are going to be on Friday for our pre-Shabbat live. And then Tuesday, the big news is we got our Monday night class. We got the meditation on Sunday. This week, the Tuesday class, instead of it being on Tuesday, is going to be on Wednesday. And we're going to be having a concert with my brother Eli and learning about the history of Jewish music together. That's going to be this Tuesday night. So the tradition is that at this point of the year, when you get to this point in the year, we already start to wish each other a happy and a healthy, sweet new year. And so from the 15th day of the month of Av and on, we wish each other Lishana Tova, that you should be inscribed for a new year. So it's actually a 45 days of it. Now, I don't know if Michael and Barbara, if you guys were looking at the chat. So I don't think you were, but we've had some really incredible feedback, which I hope to give to you. And so I am capturing that for us. But if you can take a look there, we've gotten some really nice ones. So Lashana Tova to everybody, and we look forward to seeing you and celebrating with you. We'll figure out how to do that in a proper way for this coming Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur is going to be a little bit of a different kind. But thanks to both of you, you definitely made it a little bit more deeper and more profound. So Yasher Koach, thank you for that. Thank you all for joining us for 2 hours of relationship bliss.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Michael. Michael Kaufman. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua, for the clapping.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is that Adrian?
Yes, thank you. Great
All right.
program. Appreciate it all. Now I'm going to share all the notes with my husband.
Oh,
There were like 4 pages.
nice.
Yoshikawa.
Thanks. Good to see you, Letty.
Thank
Thank you.
Good to see you, Albert, Ina, Azita, Yelena, Gail, Roberta. Who else? Rena and the Gammons, Rosalind and Greg. I remember your wedding. How many years is it already now that you guys are married? How many years are you celebrating?
20.
20 years.
And we met
Oh my
23
goodness.
years ago. 23 years ago.
23?
Yes.
I think it's more, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my husband and I just celebrated 28 years.
Wow.
One
Mazel
second.
tov.
Thank you.
That is
And
great.
no, that's all. That's it.
Very nice. Well, thank you all for joining us. Have a great night. Make it a great evening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great evening.